Hey, Worthiness Warriors. I am so excited for today's podcast and for one of the most kind of inspiring, motivating, and driven guests that I've had on in a while. And so I am so excited to be here with Matt Gagne. And so Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and to share your positivity, because you are so positive and upbeat. So thank you for taking this time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me. I think positivity breeds positivity. So likewise to yourself, Julie, because as soon as I met you, I was like, yes, we're definitely in alignment, I think, in a lot of ways.
100%. And it feels so good. And so I want to use this time and just share. You have such an inspiring story, such a meaningful story, and such a meaningful quest of what you're out to do and achieve and create in this world. And so I want to touch on all of that. And so the first thing I want to do, though, is I want people to really get to know you. And so I want you to take a few minutes of just, how did you get to where you are? And tell me a little bit about your story so people can see themselves in you.
Yeah, it's a good question. How do we get to where we are? For me now, life has kind of unfolded almost organically through action, of course, but almost by accident. Like in the ups and downs, I never thought I'd be where I am today at certain times. But yeah, so I guess rewind way back to 2007. I started working on my first wind tunnel. I had no experience. I was a total, what they call a woofo, like a first timer, non-skydiver. Got a job there after flying for a couple of minutes, like long story. And that's where I fell in love with the sport of body flight, which is indoor skydiving. And that's where I met skydivers who at the time to me were like borderline superheroes, because these guys were like, they're jumping out of airplanes. It was like, whoa, these guys are nuts. And they had passports full of stamps. Like, they were living life on their terms, and they weren't fearless. They weren't like, they didn't have a death wish. Like, they just did it because they were inclined and inspired to do so. And they had so much energy from living life that way. I was inspired, and that's what really changed a lot of my thought processes, and kind of learned mentalities about like living in my own hometown, and like not like I wanted to experience the world. And finally, like, these guys kind of inspired me to take action and actually go after chase my dreams and face those fears. And I've learned through that, like, to overcome adversity. And I feel so like charged that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And life's going to be okay. There's always ups and downs, and you wouldn't appreciate the highs if you didn't have the lows. So,
that's so good. That's so good. Keep going.
So I was working in the wind tunnel. Eventually I built up the courage and the interest to actually jump out of an airplane myself. I was training skydivers like indoors, and I'm like, well, these guys can do it, I guess I could do it. So built up the courage and talked myself into it. I dipped my toes in the water. I did like 4 jumps in 2009, 6 jumps in 2011, and then I got licensed in 2012. And then as soon as I got licensed, I was still terrified, but that's when I was like, I want to be a skydiver. This is what I want to do with my life. Like, I want to travel the world, and this is who I am. This is what I'm going to be. And I, had a lot of experience at that point already, even a couple of years indoor skydiving. So you get very comfortable maneuvering in the wind. It's basically like breakdancing and gymnastics in a hurricane. That's like the best way I could describe it. And you can do all of those things in the sky too. There's just no walls to hit, and you can hold certain angles that like are like blocking across the sky. That's where flock comes from. Like, because you're moving, like you're making massive movements that you can't do when you're boxed in. You got to be open. You got to be vulnerable. So that's like, everything has just fed into everything. Like, I'm just trying to build off of everything that I do. And sometimes things don't work out, but I just keep building. And eventually part of that skill actually comes back into play and helps me with whatever it is I'm on to doing next. It's funny. Like, So yeah, I was inspired by skydivers. I wanted to travel. I actually was commuting back and forth to work for 4.5 years. I worked at the first wind tunnel facility I ever worked at, Skyventure, New Hampshire. It was in Nashua, so I lived, my hometown is in Massachusetts, so 45 minutes away, drive each way for 4 years. Eventually, I said, okay, enough. I wanted to, break free of the bubble, and I started traveling. I started to apply to different wind tunnels all over the country. I had friends who, it's crazy, like Skyventure, New Hampshire, I took Vice President Al Gore and his family, like 3 different occasions.
Oh my
He
God.
came, it was in November, I think it was 2010 or 11. And he came once. He actually didn't fly the first time because on our waiver it said we had the rights to use your image, and we didn't even know who he was at first. I didn't know. I was teaching the class. I didn't even know who he was at first. And then, like, as I'm taking the rest of his family in, they're like, hey, don't mess up. That's Al Gore's family right there. I was like, what? And then, yeah, eventually they came back 2 times after that, the same month, and he flew both those times. On a sidetrack. So working in New Hampshire was a crazy experience, like meeting all these people, and these people were traveling. So I'm like, I got to scratch this itch, or I'm going to always live with regret. And so that's what I did. I went, I started applying to different places, applied to a wind tunnel operation that was supposed to open up in Dubai. I had 2 friends that already moved out there and were working for the Drop Zone, Skydive Dubai. And one of them actually basically hand delivered my resume to the operations manager and was like, hire this kid. And by that time, I had already been applying to other places. I hadn't heard back from them. So I moved on. Like I wanted to leave my hometown. So I picked up everything. I packed it all in my Subaru Legacy. And I drove from from Leominster, Massachusetts to Seattle, Washington in 3.5 days. With everything, my whole life packed in my car. I just drove straight through like a zombie, and stopped just sleeping on the side of the road. Saw some amazing things along the way. And I just told myself, like, this was the right decision. Like, as scary as it was, like, I had a girlfriend that we broke up because of this, because I wanted to travel and she wasn't ready. It was just, I couldn't let anything hold me back from like this itch, and then that, moving to Seattle, was like, well, I'm already in Seattle. I got an email like 6 months later after living there, like, hey, you want to do an interview on Skype for the Crown Prince's wind tunnel of Dubai? And I was like, yeah, I think I would. So scheduled the interview with the guy who my friend hand delivered the resume to. So got the job. And then I was like, I never thought I was going to drive across country again, because it was awful the first experience, because packed with everything in my Subaru Legacy. I had nowhere to sleep. It was like not comfortable to experience that road trip, right? Which I'm going on this, I leave Friday now I'm in a van, but a lot more comfortable being in a van than a Subaru Legacy. So, and I took 3.5 days, I didn't obviously take my time. So fast forward, I ended up driving back across country. I did it in 5 days, driving back from Washington to my hometown, got rid of all my possessions, parked my car in my parents' driveway so it could be sold, because I literally had to leave like a week later, and went to Dubai. Because I was like, well, I was already 3,000 miles away from home. Why not be 6,000? Still going to visit for Christmas, just a longer flight. That was my mentality. And everybody was scared because it was the Middle East. They're like, or didn't even know where Dubai was. They're like, is that India? Like, where is that? They have no idea. I didn't even really know. Like, it's hard for me to point out. I could point it out on a map now, but I couldn't before. But it's the Middle East. You're right next to, you're in the middle, like you're between like Saudi and Pakistan. But it's like the Switzerland of the Middle East. It's very liberal there. There's hotels, there's bars, there's all of that there. It's crazy. So I was there for 2.5 years. I went there, I had like 65 skydives in total. And I was like, this is skydiving university for me. And I was determined to get onto a skydiving team. That was my intent. I wanted to be a competitive skydiver. So that's where I went there with that intention. 2 years into living there, I actually was recruited onto, they're still now actually to this day, the world and national champions of their discipline in skydiving. They do 4-way VFS, so like vertical formation skydiving. It's intense, but so they're the best at what they do. I was recruited onto that team, and 4 days before I was leaving to go to training camp, I was actually going to a skydiving boogie, which is like a festival, skydive all day, party at night, and then immediately after that, we were going to start training camp. 4 days away from leaving Dubai after 2 years to go and start that journey, I was a passenger in a car accident, and it was 4 days before I was leaving. So I sold my car. I sold all my possessions. I was sleeping on a foam pad in my apartment because I sold everything. And 4 days before that flight, I was a passenger in a car accident, broke my neck in 10 places. I was internally decapitated at the C5, C6 level. And I thought, like, my immediate thing before I even, like, after the accident, like, I was conscious though. I can tell you the whole thing very vividly, but it would take too long for this thing. But I remember laying there before I was even thinking I might not be able to walk. I was thinking, fuck, I'm not going to be able to go. I guess I'm not leaving on this trip. That was my first thought. And then it was like, fuck, can I move? And I couldn't at first. But within an hour, the ambulance got there. And
an hour?
I was able to move after that. We were in the middle of the desert, driving from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, which is about an hour, because this was 4 days before, right? So I used to train a lot of DOD guys and Navy SEALs in the wind tunnel. And they loved me because I used to give them a lot of freedom in there, because they're all big, tough dudes. I'm like, just don't fall down and break your neck. That's like always the biggest fear, right? Ironic. So it was, these guys invited myself and a few coworkers out to shoot like all guns and all that, like on their range. It's kind of hush hush. I won't name any names or where we went, but yeah, we were coming back from that. And when the accident happened, and the driver I was in the passenger seat, front passenger seat. It was just the two of us. Ironic that on the way there, I was in the other car, and I swapped cars on the way back because he was going to drop me off at mine. And then we get into this accident, and he was driving reckless. It was a single car accident. He was messing around, went to pass our coworkers, and we ran out of road. It was an intersection. You couldn't go straight anymore. We were doing 90.
Oh my God.
We were doing 120 kilometers an hour, and it was left or right turn only. So we went off and landed straight on the roof. I was buried in the sand up to my chest, like upside down in the sand.
Oh my God.
So I was suffocating in the sand. The guys that we passed came to our rescue, literally like pulled me out. So they didn't want to move me, obviously, but luckily, because I have stretch marks on my spinal cord. Like if it shifted just a little bit further, I would have been dead or paralyzed. Like literally from like, I'd be able to blink my eyes.
Oh my God.
That was from C1 down to T4.
And so now, like, I want, like, so that happened, right? But quickly, I want to just have like a comparison.
No, sorry, I get this. No. Like, there's so many pieces. So yeah. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, so I want to give people an idea, like how healthy are you today, and like how do you live today?
I'm lucky. Like, I mean, you could see. Well, this is a good one. Like, I can show you. Like, I'm very, very fortunate. Like, I actually got my ratings to become a skydiving instructor. My specialty, I was a pro wind tunnel flyer. I trained skydivers how to perform and maneuver in wind tunnels, and I was also a skydiver. But I didn't take non-skydivers for a ride. Like, I wasn't a tandem instructor. I didn't teach people to become skydivers. I was one myself, but I got those ratings after my injury because I was determined to get back to where I was. And I didn't want to just be like the same. I wanted to be better. And I was trying to prove that to myself. I was trying to prove to everyone. I literally used that as like the carrot that I like philosophically dangled in front of myself. And I told everyone. Like I was waking up at like 4 a.m. so I can go to the gym to work out like before going to work, because that was part of my PT. I was like alkaline based diet. I was just like intermittent fasting, like everything, like anything that I could do to help influence my recovery for the better. I was doing it, and I was like running with it,
So
and just
this
constantly researching like everything that I could.
so this is what I think is so interesting. So
A
like
lot.
you were, yeah, you were basically handed cards, right? And you made a choice. You made a choice on how you wanted to move
100%.
forward, how you wanted to create your life, how you wanted to be.
This
And so,
guy, this guy driving, like I wanted to hold anger to him, right? Like this guy changed the whole I thought, right? I thought this guy stole my dreams from me, and I wanted to blame him. And in the Middle East, I actually had power to influence his punishment with the police. Like they literally asked me before letting him go. He was handcuffed to his bed when he woke up in the hospital. And I was like, no, let him go. It was an accident. Like it was an accident. And there's times where I like regretted that, and times where I was like, no, he should, because I didn't think that he learned or really understood the impact that it had. But ultimately, it was an accident. And to hold on to that bitterness, how will that serve me? How is that going to make my life better? Like, how is that going to help me reach my goal? If I'm holding on to that, all it's doing is holding me back. That is the fact. Like, and until you admit that to yourself, which is hard because it's a scapegoat also, because by holding on to it, you're also robbing yourself of the opportunity to learn and grow from it. And it's usually because someone's too scared to just admit it to themselves, because they have to do the reflection inwardly and deal with the problem.
God, that's so powerful. And I'm so glad that you went there, because that was a really big point that I wanted to hit today with you, because I've had to do some radical forgiveness in my life as well. And I held on to it for a while because I needed to, right? Like we all have our process, and everyone processes differently. And I know that it was part of my journey and part of my growing. But if someone's listening to this and they're dealing with forgiveness, because that is a huge thing that so many people deal with, I wanted to really touch on a couple things here, but this is one of them. How would you tell people, like you shared a little bit just now, but how would you help people through that process of they're holding on to something because they're afraid that by forgiving them, it makes them, a lot of people think that makes what they did okay.
It's their own courage. It's their own inner strength. You have to use that anger and resentment and flip it. That is the key. That is the most pivotal key that I can elaborate on to people, is take that anger and resentment and bitterness and flip it inwardly and use it as your fire and motivation to be better anyways, despite it. Not prove, you'll get to the point where you're not trying to prove it to anyone. Like I said earlier, I was proving it to myself. I was proving it to anyone. I'm at the point now where I don't need to prove anything. But like you said, it's a process. Like it's you reinforce it by facing it. Like when you have fears and anxieties, the number one thing to do is run straight into that shit. Like, and I learned that honestly through skydiving. I was terrified, but the amazing experiences on the other side once I faced that fear. And it's the same with everything. Like I've used that mentality to help flip all the adversities that I've overcome, and they just keep coming, and then I just keep overcoming them. And I'm just now like, my skin's so thick just through practice. And everybody is capable, but you have to start somewhere. You got to do it for no one else other than you. You have to be selfishly aggressive and use that bitterness and that anger to motivate you to be better anyways. And that really, you'll learn to take pride in that inner strength, because that's how you're really going to help other people, and that's really how you're going to help yourself. Number one, like I know you said last time we spoke, it was like, Your cup has to be, you have to fill your cup before you can fill others. And it's true. And I learned that through physical therapy, through physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial rehabilitation. It literally took back my life. Like, it was, I have to learn how to walk again. Like, I'm okay for a little while it was, and now, like, even now I had to, again, like last year, again, realize my own my own weakness, my own structural integrities. Like, I had to walk away from being a skydiving instructor because physically I can't do it. And I did damage on my body pursuing that career, but further damage than I would. But like, for me, it was worth it because I did it and I proved it to myself. And now it's like, I know I'm capable of whatever I put my mind to. And I want to help people do that for themselves and whatever it is that they do, because I'm fucking no one. Like, I come from very humble beginnings. Like, I was a juvenile delinquent. I didn't graduate high school. I was super smart. It was out of being stubborn and thick-headed, thinking I knew it all. Like, and there's a lot of different variables for that. There's no excuses. Like, but the only excuses are the ones we make ourselves. As soon as we learn to take accountability, like, for ourselves, that's when we can actually start taking control of our lives.
God, that's so good. And I think those pieces, right? And I think something I loved when we spoke before was when you said, like, it doesn't matter what happened, right? Like, this is what I've created now. And those contextual pieces are really important for people who are looking at you to stop making excuses about themselves. And that's what I love, is when we take ourselves off a pedestal. We realize and show everyone we are not unicorns. We are human beings that have flaws and imperfections and have every excuse in the world, right? If we wanted to, we have every excuse in the world not to pursue what we're doing, but we decided that we aren't, like, we are living no excuse lives. And that's what we're doing, is we're living no excuse lives. We are human, we are flawed, and we are fearful, and we are doing it anyway. And I love that you said that, because no, that part of your story is not who you are, but it also helps give context to help other people say, if he can do it, I can do it too. And I think that is what stories do. And what our stories do is give people permission. And so something I wanted to touch on as well is that you said, like, several times, right, that, like, you went to do skydiving and you were super scared. Like, you were so afraid, but you did it anyway. And I want you to, how did you get to that place of, yes, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway?
I think perspective. It was realizing, like, we're all human, right? Not putting anyone, like, I don't put myself or anyone on a pedestal. Like, we're all human beings. Like, I travel because of skydiving, because of, like, Dubai, like, I traveled the world. And what I learned is, like, no matter where you go, people are the same. Like, same, but different. Like you said, we're all flawed. We're all human. We all have the same range of emotions, men and women. Like, we all have emotions. We're all very emotional creatures. We're very communal creatures. Some people enjoy their isolation more than others. Like, there's positives and negatives to everything, right? But I think just having that understanding, that knowing on the other side of that fear is the exact things that you desire. Like, that's going to give you the feelings that you desire so much. That's, like, human beings have to be vulnerable to be happy, in my opinion. I'm no one. What do I know? I have no training. I went, I did Psych 101 and 102 for an associate's degree that I didn't finish. But we're all human beings. We all have these emotions, right? Like, it's just a matter of facing them, owning them, and not letting them own you. Like, I speak bluntly, not by any means am I saying it easy, that it's easy.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is it's a choice, and you got to wake up. Like for me, it was car accident. Like that shook me, and I woke up and I said, okay, time to get serious. But whatever it is that shakes you, rocks you, or just motivates you to do it, just finally just self-discipline. Like it's self-accountability, and those things can be hurtful when we look inward and we feel guilty that we're not taking action.
Yeah.
And it's like we know the answers when we're just honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
So the realer you can get with yourself, and just the more action you take, the more it's perpetual, the more it's going to solidify and just become, you know, the blood that runs in your veins. Like, and you'll be a better person. You'll be able to provide for others and be strength for others, and instead of being you not like being someone that's not up enriching.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone that I encounter within my life, I want to enrich their life. Like no matter who it is, whether it's like the barista that pours my coffee, you know, be chatty with them just so they smile and enjoy their day. Like whatever it is, like any human interaction, if you can enhance that person's life, like why not?
Totally.
It makes them feel good. It makes you feel good. Like why would you not do that? And yeah, everybody has bad days. We all have bad days. But we can sit there and ponder about the excuses why you're justified to feel that way, or you can decide that you're going to be happy anyway despite that, and work on yourself to become the person capable of having the strength to continue on.
I love it. And so it's like you said, it's choice, right? It is every day we wake up and we get to choose how we want to feel, because our circumstance doesn't create our experience, right? Like that, our experience is separate from our circumstance. It's how we choose to look at things. And so there's so many, like, I love your mindset and everything you say and how you are and how you show up in the world, Matt. I think it's so inspiring. And so what are you up to now? And so I want people to know what you're up to now, what you're doing, how they can connect with you, how they can find you, how they can support you.
So right now I am in San Diego, and I leave in 4 days, and I begin the first leg of what we're deeming as the Flock Nation Tour. And I'm going from state to state, building community, hosting meetup events. And our meetup group is solely based on active living. So anything active lifestyle, like we did the wind tunnel 1 week, we can go hiking. There's going to just be, I just want to meet up with people and share time and positive energy together, and take that time for ourselves to enjoy this earth that we have. And any ideas along the way, I'm open. We have dates set. Where can we find it? I'm so new at this. I'm so bad.
No, it's good. So like, how
I was just skydiving bum, and now we're doing so many things. But
it's so cool. It's so cool. So how can they connect with you? And so like they can be up to date on when you do set dates.
So check out @FlockGoods on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Our Flock Life, the Flock Life is our meetup group. If you're a member of Meetup. So yeah, check us out on any of those places. Flockgoods.com is our store. So yeah, we're growing, we're learning, and we're building. And I teach the 5 fingers to get flocked. So
oh yeah, good. So this is what I want you to leave people with.
If in life we've all been fucked, so flip that shit and get flocked. That's what I'm trying to inspire people to do. Like, and it's silly and it's like aggressive even, right? But that's the point. Like, you gotta get aggressive for yourself, right? It's because if you don't for yourself in a healthy manner, you portray that onto other people. It's gonna come out. So allow it to come out in a healthy manner. and do it and internalize it so you can use it as your fire. And then that's your fuel that you can overcome any adversity that life throws at you, because it's going to throw plenty. So be ready.
I
Be
love,
always ready.
I
Keep
love
up.
that. Bob and weed. So that's perfect. And that's exactly how I want to end. So that is perfect. So Matt, like, please follow him, show him some love, go to his meetup events, spread the word, be ready, state to state. His tour is happening, right? And like,
Yes, ma'am.
bring the flock, right? And so thank you, Matt, so much for coming on. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Everyone, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. And I will talk to you all next week.
Later.
Amazing. So we're going to keep recording though, because I want to record this for the bonus section.
Cool.
So we're not quite done.
This is for everyone who wants to flock with us.
This is the ones who want to flock with us. Yeah.
The community, the mindset.
And so I want you to go in, because even today I talked about growth mindset, and like, you have a growth mindset, and growth mindset is learned, right? And so I think there's like a couple things you said of just like, allow yourself to see, like, allow yourself to face adversity and realize that you can overcome it. But I wanted to dive deeper a little bit into your mind. And so tell me, what are, like, when you get scared, when you get nervous, when you have self-doubt, because we all do, what is the exact story that you tell yourself?
Oh man, I don't know if some of your listeners are going to be cool with the verbiage that I use internally, but seriously, like, when my alarm clock went off this morning at 6, I was like, come on, pussy, get up. Like, just get up. Like, don't I literally talk to myself like deprecation.
Yeah. Yeah, you're self-deprecating. Yeah, which like isn't something I totally teach
in a playful manner, though. In a playful manner. I think without context that it may not make sense. I'm a very sarcastic individual, and I literally say that like jokingly to myself, like, let's go. Like, come on. Like, you don't have to use profanity, but you can just it's tough love with yourself. Yeah. Like, really, you have to stop, like, because I try to think about, I wake up with the anticipation. I've read this actually in the Miracle Morning. I've read like all the personal development books, like mindset, all that. I've read I usually audio.
Listen, yeah.
Audio books,
I'm gonna ask you that question too, but keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, Miracle Morning, he said, wake up with the intention of something good happening. And that really resonated with me. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, why not? Like, it's 50-50. You might get up, it might suck, but it might be awesome. So why not think it's going to be awesome instead? Yeah. Like, it's silly and simple, but when you break it down to yourself, it really is. Like, I try not to take myself too seriously. I try to be disciplined, but also I like to be playful. And I think for me, that's how I build the sustainable systems that I'm able to continue doing over time. And the longer you do them, the easier they are to simply maintain. And I think that's kind of like, we touched on this last time, like getting to that point, and it's like the rocket ship leaving for orbit and just getting through and punching through the orbit, getting past like gravity. And once it's in orbit, now it's floating. Right now we're flocking, and you just keep cruising. So, and it still takes effort, but it becomes your default, your natural like set point. And then it becomes a much healthier, more sustainable way to go about living your life. And it's different for everyone. My 5 fingers to get flocked, it's basically like an internal audit. That's what it is. And it's an internal audit so you can start taking accountability for yourself.
So what are the 5?
Physical fitness. And they're kind of strategic order for me. Like, physical fitness is the start because it's hard. And when you physically push yourself to do, like, for me, I had to learn how to walk again, literally. But when you physically push yourself to do something difficult, that strengthens your mental fortitude also. Right? And that builds character, it builds discipline, it builds that inner strength. So it bleeds right into the mental health, which is the second finger. And there's so many subcategories for all of these things. That's why I mean, like, it's not, I don't have there's no cookie cutter, like I don't sell like any, like there's no cookie cutter solution for anyone, but these are areas that everybody can account for and say, where can I be doing better? Where can I suck less and do better? But that's that playful, like inner, like nudge, like, so physical fitness, mental health, once you're doing those things, now you're ready to start making better nutritional choices too, right? Because you're fueling your body, literally fueling your body with the building blocks that it needs to rebuild itself. And that's exactly what you do with physical fitness and mental health. Like to run optimally, you need proper nutrition.
Yeah.
Lifestyle, you need balance. Like you can't, I work hard, I wake up early, but I make sure that, and there's been times that I've slacked in one direction or the other, right? But lifestyle, you have to have a balance, a flow throughout your day. So you're working on yourself, you're working on your future, and you're experiencing in the moment daily. So lifestyle, that's finding the balance that works for you. And rest, we all need rest, right? And that is not just sleeping. Resting means like turning your phone off an hour before bed. Resting means like taking a break from those around you. If you need some alone time for a little while, like whatever rest is, like there's many subcategories to that too. But those are like the 5 areas that I learned to optimize through my own journey of physical rehabilitation. And that was like the internal audit. And that's why when I spoke before, how it's like the natural progression in what I'm doing now, like literally through like rebuilding and taking back my life, that framework is now kind of what we do with Flock, through Flock. And it's almost another vehicle. That's another part of getting over or moving forward past adversity, is filling that void that once filled, right? So for me, like, I still skydive, but very infrequently. I physically can. My neck's just not so good. So yeah. I had to accept that. And I'm very thankful that I could do it at all. But I'm very fortunate that I can't at all. So it's putting it in perspective, right? But then filling the void with something else. Like what skydiving brought me, like that adrenaline rush, but I also worked in skydiving. I was an instructor. I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed connecting with individuals. And so it's similar to what we're doing now through Flock, by teaching those 5 fingers. So I've filled that void in another way, and something that still speaks to who I am and is still my truth. So I can speak on it because I have experience and knowledge through my own journey. But I don't claim to be even an expert in any of those things. Right. I actually part on the Flock Life Tour, we're actively reaching out to experts in those industries so we can meet up, do the podcast thing, do a meetup group together and collaborate. Like I want to learn from people who, I try to learn from literally everyone that I meet every single day, like something, or at least something in the exchange that we had.
Yeah.
So that's, if I can reach out to all these individuals who are experts in those areas, and we can share knowledge, their knowledge, my knowledge, experience, and collaborate, and then share that with our communities. That's how I want to live my life. Like I just want to continue doing that, more of that, and building off of that. So this is it's just the start.
I love it.
Really just the beginning.
It's amazing. And so
first stop Vegas.
First stop Vegas, baby.
Then we're going to Arizona. Spending more time in Arizona. I have a lot more connections there, more friends there. I have one affiliate. Her name is Latrice. She's amazing. She used to live here in San Diego, and now she's in LV. So we're going to hang out there, host a meetup group there. I'm still trying to figure out what other activities we can get into. Probably a hike. Maybe like a hike at Red Rock or somewhere near that.
And so what I always love to like get people's resources, like how they learn. So books, what I would say, like maybe top 2 books, and like what are your top podcasts that you listen to?
Top 2 books. Oh man. I think for top 2, I'm going to say 2 of them. I don't even know if necessarily they're my top 2, but they're the first 2 that come to mind that I think everybody should take a listen or read. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
What,
That helped
Rich Dad
me.
Poor Dad? Okay.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Mm.
Those 2 books really, amongst many, many, many others.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those 2, like, I had a lot of, like, I come from humble beginnings. Like, my family, I didn't have a lot of direction when I was growing up. When I was young, I didn't have a lot of supervision. And I was always looking for leadership, and I was looked in all the wrong places, and made all of the mistakes that I could. But I think you learn from those mistakes, and that's why I feel like through this self-reflect, I've done a lot of, through my journey, a lot of time alone, living in a van alone. You have a lot of time to reflect. There's a fine line between reflecting and isolation, but you learn through reflecting as well. And that's part of being in the van, just cutting out all the noise. That's why I lived in this van unbuilt for 6 months, because I want to get rid of all the distractions. Like, I literally got rid of all the distractions, didn't worry about anything else. Like, and just because it goes in cycles, you're constantly rebuilding.
Yeah.
So there's always the ebb and flow, relationships and things. Life's hard, but you gotta know that you learn from everyone and everything, and you just gotta swallow your ego and open your eyes and ears, and not be too inclined to convince people of the way you think, but rather spend more time. And that was something I had to learn too. I was thick-headed at one point in my life, like, but it's ignorant to think you have all the answers. I'd much rather just learn on gaining insight on why people think the way they do, especially when it's different than my own, because I think that's how the most growth occurs. The most understanding takes place. And then once you have understanding, like, then you can actually really have empathy towards others and have, like, pride in your ability to, like, lead through demonstrating.
I love
Instead
it.
of like, I want to show, not tell.
Yeah. Live by example, for sure. That's the best way, like, lead by example. Amazing. Well, you gave us so much good stuff. So much good stuff. I'm so grateful. I'm so incredibly grateful. So,
This is like my 3rd podcast ever, so I'm a little bit of a space cadet.
no,
All over the place, but
it's great. And no, this is like, that's the thing. Start somewhere, right? Start somewhere. And then just, like, you learn and you grow as you go. And that's what's so great. So, everyone, thank you so much for listening. The Worthiness Warrior Club, we are coming more at ya with even more awesomeness. And you can thank Matt for everything that he brought today.
Thank you so much for having me. I would love to do this again in the future, and I wish you and all your listeners the best. So, nothing but love.